what's happened as a result of COVID is that actually a lot of organizations that were very resistant are now having to channel and think differently is, okay, what's the culture that we want moving forward?
Yeah.
Because in order for us to attract the right talent,
yeah,
actually we've got to think and be different. Because if we're not, if we go back to what the way things were, you know, and specifically, I can think of a couple of companies that I've been working with over the years, is that if they don't change and adapt, there isn't going to be the people that are going to fill those highly skilled jobs locally. There will be from an international perspective, but then that takes, you know, a leap of faith. I think one of the things that's been tested during this period is around trust. You know, are you going to be a nose in or fingers out? So literally just kind of dipping in and going, okay, so what's going on? But making sure that your fingers are out and allowing people to do what they need to do. And that's about trust. It's about accountability. It's about ownership. It's about vision and direction. You know, help me understand as an employee, where are we heading? Because if I've got a North Star and I know where we're heading, then I can make and base my decisions on what I'm trying to achieve rather than being micromanaged. And I think with that creates, you know, I've been working with a lot of companies over the last period, and what a great opportunity to sit down, look at your business and go, this is the greatest gift for some that we've ever going to be given. We've now got a blank piece of paper, you know, customer journey, workflow process, stakeholder integration, employee engagement, all of these things. You could start from, you know, literally ground zero and build the company that you wanted to build or you wanted to adapt over a period of time, but parameters meant that you've not been able to. So, you know, I'd be really encouraging people at the moment to take stock. And once you've got some level of normality and systems eyes working, is to really think, how and what could we be doing? Because this is an opportunity.
It is an opportunity, and you're right. And people have to think about the adaptation. A lot of companies are thinking in certain sectors, you know what, things will go back to normal. There'll be a new normal, but then it'll only be for a year. And then after a year, back to normal again. Well, what are you going to do when there's going to be another pandemic? God forbid there's going to be, but you know, things are going to change. And how can we adapt and evolve so you can protect your business now for the future, not just for the next year? Because after a year, everything will be back to normal again. People will be out shopping again, as it were, normally. Not necessarily. And I think that's something that people are thinking about a lot, but not quite sure how to go in that direction.
So, I think for me, what has happened is change. If you look at what happens within any business, change is happening consistently on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
But actually what's happened through this period is so much has changed or is now different than it was before. Okay. And, you know, if you're engaging with a coach or you're being challenged from some way or another, those narrow-minded thinking or thought process you're either challenging yourself or you're being challenged by somebody else. So what that's doing is that you're challenging the normal consistently. So when something like this happens, all of a sudden it's like, okay, now I've gone through fight or flight situation. And I think, you know, there's a degree that everybody goes through, or if you look at the grief cycle, and there's plenty more people qualified than me. Once you've kind of gone through that and you're kind of on the way up, it's then a case of, right, okay, what's the systems thinking about how we adapt and how we move and how we start doing things differently? You know, test and measure, test and measure, test and measure. You know, well, if you look at any aspect of a product or a service or marketing, nobody ever gets it right the first time. What we've got to do is we've got to try. We've got to understand, what does the market need at this moment in time? This is no different to anything else other than there's a lot of people in exactly the same position at exactly the same moment in time. So are you and your organization going to adapt and start challenging yourself and the norm and getting to a different, you know, be comfortable in being uncomfortable, you know,
comfortable in becoming comfortable. That's good. I like that.
Exactly. Right. So you and I get on a call every month. Okay. You know that through the conversation, I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable, either challenging you on some of the decisions that you've made, or helping you understand on some of the things that you're going to need to explore.
Yeah.
Okay. But there's that level of, okay, he's going to be a bit of a pain in the arse, but actually that's where we're getting value from, because we're being prodded and poked, because we can't do that ourselves. And actually what's important is that we find ways of getting into that stage of being uncomfortable, because when we're uncomfortable, that's where the growth is going to come from. And I think for a lot of people is that they revert to type, they get complacent, they you know, a lot of people are, well, who would have ever thought 8 weeks ago that this was going to happen? Nobody. You know, I do a lot of work with, especially with boards of directors, a kind of strategic planning, wargaming. So one of the things that the forces are really good at is that they situationally analyze and go, right, okay, we're going to practice for every single eventuality, so that when we're actually in the battlefield, all of a sudden something happens. Okay, know exactly what to do because we've done that in that drill.
Yeah.
Okay. A common one that I often use is sitting in a board meeting. Could be you and Dips. Okay, one of you's just been knocked over by a bus.
Yeah.
Turn your chair around. Okay, what we're going to do?
Yeah.
You know, who's got access to the bank accounts? How are you going to carry on running the shop? How quickly can you release the money out of the business? You know, all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't spend any time thinking about that. It's all about the what's happening now or in this next period.
Yeah.
So when you could start doing that on a regular basis and stress testing, actually you can have quite a lot of fun.
I don't think many people would call stress testing and fun, put them in the same sentence. Wouldn't happen very often. Only you would do something like that to call that fun.
Okay, maybe I'm just sadistic and I quite enjoy it. But what it does do is, when you have a situation like this, people then are like, oh, okay, we don't need to panic, or we don't need to panic as much, because what do we need to do? Okay, these are the steps. And look, you're never going to have it written exactly down,
no.
But you're used to that rhythm and the cadence of proverbials hit the fan. What we're going to do? Okay,
yeah.
Don't panic. Pause. Step back. Reflect. Okay, where are the fires? What are the ones that we need to put out now?
Yeah.
How do we deal with these people, these stakeholders? What do we need to do over here? So that it then becomes part of the rhythm.
Something that I have learned just recently, I know that we're running short on time, and we'll type this up in a second, is I have to do something that scares me regularly to get out of my comfort zone. And I have made the biggest progresses, I'd say, within the last 6 to 9 months, because I'm doing more stuff that scares me. Not in terms of like bungee jumping off a cliff or anything like that, but things I didn't think that I could do, or I delayed doing it because I just thought, I'll be all right, I'll stay as I am, because I like my comfort zone. But the more you start pushing out the comfort zone is where the change really starts to happen. That's where things, I think, become a bit more magical. And that's where you start, that's where I think someone like you, for example, who does coaching in this way, help people feel great about themselves, because you're giving them the confidence to conquer their world in that way by pushing them out of that comfort zone and pushing the boundary and making them feel really uncomfortable. I think that's something that you do really well. And I think that's something that people need to think about, these kind of things in the future at the same time as well, is how can you push a bit more, pushing a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, so I think a lot of people, it's the self-limiting belief.
Yeah.
Often the goal or the objective is too far away that we can't necessarily achieve it. You know, the age-old thing, how do you eat an elephant one step at a time? You know, if you're not a runner and I said, right, go and run a marathon, 26 miles and run a marathon tomorrow, it's not going to be possible.
No.
You have to put the training, and you have to understand and to build up gradually. And I think that's, you know, it's very similar. If you think about coming from a physical perspective, it's the same with the mind. We need to be challenging our mind and our behaviors and our history and our mental models. There's something that stops us doing what we want to do. Okay. And actually that's a lot of the times that's where the coaching piece comes from, because we're challenging those internal assumptions.
The self-talk is being challenged. That's what we're challenging. The self-talk is what we've been taught to believe is true by our peers, by our media, by ourselves, and by our family. Actually, when you start challenging that in a different way, and you start thinking about, well, you get challenged, that's when you start thinking, you know what, maybe that wasn't always true.
So I think for me, it's the fear of succeeding or not. And a lot of the times as well, it's actually, what is the perception of other people? And we've been ingrained within our culture is that we really are, why are we more concerned about what other people think of us as opposed to what we think of ourselves?
That's huge. Keeping up with the Joneses, perceptions, what you've been taught, what will the neighbors think, what will your family think. To break those shackles is very freeing, but it's also scary at the same time.
Absolutely. You know, look, your perception is your reality.
Yeah.
And what we've got to do is we've got to challenge our own perceptions and our own realities and saying, right, okay, is this really what I want? Because what I'm saying and what I'm doing, you know, there's a mismatch.
Yeah.
So if I really want to make a change and I really want to do something different, do it, or just accept it.
It reminds me
and
of,
sometimes just accepting it is as if not more powerful.
it reminds me of a very deep and meaningful phrase that I remember from Friends. Joey saying to Rachel, when she wanted to quit her job, pee into the wind. If you don't do something that's going to be scary or you don't challenge it, then how will you ever change? And if Joey from Friends can say that, come on, people, that was 20 years ago. He was saying it then as well. I have one quick thing to do on this, okay?
Yeah.
Something regularly is something we called a myth buster. So if you could bust any myth right here, right now, about coaching or remote working, or hey, relocating to another country, for example, if you want to bust one thing that you hear often again and you think, you know what, that's just rubbish, I want to bust that myth right now, bust it, go for it.
Okay, so I can't do it.
Okay.
Actually is I haven't got the gumption or the desire to actually want to do it.
Okay.
Or it's just not that important to me.
Very true. Importance versus what's that graph? Importance versus time, or will and skill. What's that?
Yeah,
that a graph?
I'm sure there'll be a Venn diagram somewhere.
There is something I'm thinking about that, but yeah, you're right. There is a thinking about, is it can't or is it you don't want to? How important do you want it? How badly do you want this?
Absolutely. How badly do you want
this? Adam, this has been really awesome. I appreciate your time. I recognize you are very busy and it's pretty late over there. It's bloody early over here.
Absolute pleasure. Always love talking to you.
I appreciate your time, and as a way of saying thank you to you, you have been seriously awesome what we've been doing together. I've loved it. We've had so much fun, Dips and I have, and hopefully we can do it for a lot longer as well in the future. This is Adam.
I hope so too.
How can people find you on the socials and stuff like that? Where are you? I'll link it.
fresh-mindset.co.uk, Adam at fresh-mindset.co.uk. Search for me on LinkedIn, reach out to you. I think one thing for me that's important is if you do believe that you want coaching or some sort of challenge, just come to me. We'll have a conversation, a little bit like I did when you and I first started working together. If I'm not the right fit, I'll know the right person that will be, and I'll be more than happy to signpost you through to find the right person to support you.
That sounds really awesome. Thank you for your time. Have a good day, and we'll see you real soon.